Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm an associate attorney here at the Office of Beltran Brito Casamayor.
Hi, I'm Gil Brito. I'm managing partner of Beltran Brito Casamayor here in Miami, Florida. We are immigration attorneys dedicated to all aspects of immigration nationality law. Michelle, what is the topic for today?
So today we're going to be speaking about PERMs, labor certifications, right? So for the purpose of explaining it, we like to separate it into three parts, right? The first part is going to be the labor certification process. The second part is going to be the I-140 process that's done directly with USCIS. And then the third part is going to be the adjustment of status.
Yeah,
right?
or the consular process if it's
consular.
for visa, immigrant visa issuance abroad. And you know, what's the purpose of this labor certification process? So I'm a professional. A company wants to hire me in the U.S. Michelle, why do they have to do this?
Right. So the point of this is to show that that company has made efforts to find a U.S. worker to fill this position. However, they were unable to, and that's why they are bringing in this foreign national to fill this position. So the idea is that this position has certain requirements. There are certain things that this person needs to know in order to correctly fill the position. So,
Skills, degrees, work experience,
exactly.
for example.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the idea is that you do a period of advertisements to try to fill that position, to show that you've made a good faith effort to fill that position, right?
So that process is called the recruitment process.
Exactly.
Let's backtrack a second though and let's say how do we know what is the salary that's being offered? How do we go about this process?
Right. So this first step, the labor certification process, right? Step one of that is going to be the prevailing wage determination. So basically what that entails is you're presenting the job description, the necessary skills, the necessary degree to the Department of Labor.
Selecting a job title, a job code.
Title.
This is all done with the Department of Labor. They have everything organized just by different codes, and we're utilizing this code, this title that fills the necessity and what this company actually requires.
What they need for this position.
Sure.
So you present all that information to the Department of Labor, and they're going to come back and they're going to tell you what the salary needs to be for that position, the minimum salary.
Sure. Is that all across the U.S.? Is that Florida? Is that New York?
Right.
Where
So
is
this is it's going to be different for every
state, right?
every state and for every county. So,
Sure.
for example, Miami-Dade County is going to have a different salary for a specific position than Broward is, for example.
Yes.
Right. So that's something that all has to be presented to the Department of Labor.
Prevailing wage comes back. It comes back with a number. What does that number actually mean? So that salary means that this is the minimum salary that they're going to allow for this job title, for example, and for this company to pay an individual. Why? Because this labor market in this county requires this minimum salary. Because if they pay you way below that, you are bringing down this labor market. The Department of Labor says we can't do that. We need to protect who? American workers and protect workers here in the U.S. that are able to potentially to take that job, right? So they create the prevailing wage. This is the minimum that's allowed to be paid for that particular job.
Right. So an employer, if they decide to, can always pay a higher salary.
Of course.
But this is at least the minimum salary.
Sure. So we have the prevailing wage. Then what happens?
Have that number. Next, we move on to the advertising.
Okay.
We had mentioned before.
Sure. The recruitment process.
So the recruitment process. So what's included there? So for example, you have to do 2 Sundays in a newspaper.
Sure.
Right. So if we were in Miami-Dade County, for example, it would be the Miami Herald. We do 2 consecutive Sunday ads in the Miami Herald. Other than that, we do an advertisement, an ad with the local state agency. Right. So, for example, we do with Florida. It's called Employ Florida, and you do a 30-day ad with Employ
This is a
Florida.
website. Individuals that are looking for jobs in the state of Florida could enter this. Think of it as just a state-run platform where you're able to look for jobs.
Exactly. So you have to do that for 30 days. And if it's a professional position, there's a few more requirements that you have to do. For example, one of the things that you also need to do is it's called a posting notice. So in the place of employment, that company that's sponsoring this petition, they're going to post a notice in their office just advertising that they are looking for someone to fill a specific position.
What's a professional position? Let's talk about that.
Right. So there's actually a list that's given by the Department of Labor, and it specifies which positions are professional and which ones aren't.
Sure. And if it is professional, you have to go more than the typical minimum
Exactly.
recruitment efforts. We have to usually go ahead, and we like to test the labor market by putting usually 5 different, opportunities to actually see if there is a qualified U.S. worker for that position.
Yeah, so what that can include is, for example, if the company has a website, they can post it on their website. They can use other online
Professional trade publications,
online job
for
websites.
example.
Exactly, they can use that. Smaller circulation newspapers, for example, the radio, things like that. So there's a requirement. We have to meet a certain number of ads depending on the position.
So we do recruitment. Recruitment is going to go ahead and finish. There is somebody that qualifies, they need to be interviewed. Correct. If there's potential applicants, they need to be interviewed, and maybe you could go ahead and find the worker by testing the labor market in that way. Let's say they were unable to find a qualified employee, applicant. What happens next?
Right, so this is where we get to actually present the PERM, the labor certification, to the Department of Labor. And basically what that includes is information about the advertisements that were done, right, that they were unable to find someone, and here is this individual who does meet these requirements.
This foreign national applicant that actually does qualify for the position.
Exactly. So that's the time where you're presenting this individual to fill this position. So the idea is that the Department of Labor is going to review that information and then hopefully then certify.
Certify. So it's called labor certification. Labor certification, a little bit of an antiquated term. It's just the term that people know it by. It's really called PERM. There was a time that all this was done, actually physically by hand, mailed in, and there's all these government departments that you would mail everything to, and you have decisions and more red tape, more bureaucracy. Right now, it's more streamlined, and it's all online, and it's actually quite wonderful, and it's able to really process these cases much faster than they used to be processed years ago. Now, we go ahead and file the PERM, roughly a time scale there. We haven't been really talking about time scale.
Times.
Let's talk about
times. Prevailing wage,
sure.
Right? 3 to 4 months.
On average.
Around that.
Yeah.
Then the advertising, I'd say around 60 days to complete the advertising process. And then the labor certification. Right now we're seeing anywhere between 4 and 6 months. Sometimes it's been faster, it's been longer, but that's what we're seeing.
Kind of case by case basis.
Yeah.
I would say that entire process is roughly 12 to 13 months to labor certification. Finally, Department of Labor has certified it, Michelle. It's approved. What happens next? Next
is we get to move to the second step, right? Presenting this documentation to actually immigration, to USCIS.
It's called the I-140 petition, immigrant petition. This is the employer petitioning the future employee and for a green card. This forms the basis. Okay, it's the I-140 petition.
So at that point, with the I-140 petition, you're going to be submitting the actual labor certification that you received from the Department of Labor. In addition to that, what else is USCIS looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you need to show ability to pay. Okay, ability to pay is literally the name of the game, right? You need to demonstrate that the company has the capacity. Since the moment that the PERM was filed up through that process and basically up through the point of the green card issuance, you need to demonstrate that the company has the ability to pay the proffered salary, the minimum salary established by the prevailing wage. Michelle, how do you demonstrate that?
Right, so there's a few ways we can do this. I think the most traditional way is the tax returns of the company, right? So we're going to look at the latest tax returns and we're going to look at the net income. That's, I think, the most traditional way.
What happens if the net income's kind of low and the company actually doesn't really show it with the tax return? What can they do?
Right, so if the tax returns don't work, we look at the net income, it's not great. We look at the assets, it's not great. A few other ways include, one, for example, if that future employee, is actually currently working with the company.
Sure.
So maybe they've been earning that salary with the company.
Or maybe a little bit less, and it could offset what the tax return demonstrates as net income. And that's kind of a creative way to demonstrate inability to pay.
Otherwise, if, for example, the company has had a year of where they made big investments in
extraordinary expenses that are not, let's just call those atypical expenses.
Exactly, something like that. We can look at that as well. So there's a few ways to approach this. But what's really important is to look at the taxes from the beginning of the process and really see, okay, is it possible with this company? Does this company have the returns that they need to be able to move forward?
I mean, really, ability to pay should really be established at the beginning of this process, wouldn't you say so? Versus what, if you're a year into this process and then we find out that the company does not have the ability to pay, I think you've basically wasted a year. Okay, so that's a main requirement. The financial component. The second component is what, Michelle?
Right. So second, they're just going to make sure that this applicant, right, this foreign national, does qualify for the position.
Yeah. They need to actually qualify for it.
So they want to see your diploma, a copy of your diploma. They want to see a copy of your work experience letters, any certificates that you may have.
Special skills you might have.
Exactly. So they want to see, really, do you have the work experience that's necessary for this position? Do you have the diploma that's necessary for this position? That could be a U.S. diploma. That could be a foreign diploma. Depends what you request.
You might have to do a credential evaluation.
Exactly.
Is it the foreign equivalent? There's a lot of, I would say, little aspects and little things there that could be missed throughout the process.
But the good thing is, those are things that you look at the beginning.
At the beginning. It's really important, I would say, not to rush this process at the beginning. It is crucial because it will set the tone for everything that comes later. Okay, so we finally file the I-140. I would say usually that's going to take anywhere in the neighborhood of about a month or so to get it all together.
The documentation.
We could go ahead and file that case, regular processing, Michelle, or can we? What else can we do?
Right, so we have two options at this point. Regular processing, which we're seeing right now, can take anywhere from 9 to 12 months, approximately, maybe less, maybe more. Otherwise, there's a premium processing option. So what the premium processing option does is it guarantees a response in 15 days.
Sure. You pay an additional filing fee, but you have a decision in 15 days. Our recommendation generally with these cases is to go premium. Typically, the company wants you here faster. They are typically in agreement as well. You file, you have a decision in 15 days. If it's approved, what happens next? Right,
so if it's approved, then we move on to the next step. So if it's someone who's here in the United States already, we're going to go forward with the adjustment of status stage. If it's someone who's outside of the country, that's a process that's going to be done with the consulate in their foreign country.
Sure, and they'll have the immigrant visa issued abroad. If you're currently here in a non-immigrant visa, many professionals, for example, are on H-1B visas, maybe even L-1 visas, maybe even investor visas, maybe individuals here as students. They're going from student to OPT, from OPT changing their status and going directly to a green card based on this adjustment of status stage. So I have all my adjustment of status stuff together. I go ahead and I file the adjustment of status. Michelle, what happens next?
So from the date that you file the adjustment of status, we're looking at, you're going to receive a notice in the mail, to go do your fingerprint.
Sure.
After that is when your work permit and your travel permit comes in.
Sure.
So from the day that you file that adjustment of status, we're looking at approximately 4, 5, 6 months, sometimes
Sure. I think 5 months is an average.
Yeah.
I would prepare to not be able to travel outside of the U.S. during that time. If you do travel outside of the U.S. during that time, you may have abandoned your green card application. They might deny your travel document for the future approval. So there's a lot of reasons that you're probably going to want it. If there is a true emergency, there's actually a way to have an emergency travel document. That's something that we'd be happy to help you.
So when you go to file this adjustment of status, to have planned ahead of time, okay, I'm going to have this period of approximately 5 months where I can't travel. Right.
Sure. Approximately, I'm going to call 5 to maybe 6 months after you receive your work authorization document, you're going to have finally the immigration interview. This is not a common thing. It used to not be this way. Used to not. Well, there was a time, I would say about 12, 15 years ago, every labor certification would actually have to go to an interview. Sometimes you'd actually even have to go with the employer to the interview. And then they stopped doing it for about a decade. And now every green card applicant basically requires an interview if it's an adjustment of status application, Michelle. So you finally go to the interview.
Right, you go to the interview. And the idea is when you're going to the interview, you also want to show that this company still has the intention to hire you.
Sure.
So what we do is, we bring a letter of confirming that the company is still offering you this position and that they still want to employ you.
And they still, I would say it's also a good idea to have the evidence that demonstrates their ability to pay and their desire to actually pay the proffered wage. So, and obviously this adjustment of status is going to be applicable to family members, spouses, and children under the age of 21 are part of that family group. They are all eligible to adjust their status and to obtain their green cards.
So, Gil, from the day that you go for that interview, how long approximately is it going to take before you actually have your green card in your hand?
Yeah, I would say 30 to 45 days is an average. If there's no issues, they might ask for something else. That happens on occasion. If they do, we typically respond rather quickly. And I'm still going to say it's going to be less than probably 60 days to have a response on that green card.
Okay.
So talking about time,
Right.
I say from the beginning of the PERM process until about green card in hand, if there's not any issues, I'm going to say an average is in the neighborhood of about 20 months. It might be a little bit more, it might be a little bit less. It depends on the specific case, but that's a good time average for the case. Kind of one of the frequent questions we receive is, what's a good company to act?
Yeah.
What type of company? Does a company have to have a minimum amount of employees?
Or do they have to be big, or can it be a small company?
Yeah, I would say that's something that needs to be handled at the beginning. I don't care too much how many employees they necessarily have. I care much more that they're able to actually pay the salary that's laid out. And this is something that needs to be handled. And our number one recommendation is do it at the beginning. A lot of times, we have all these surprises throughout this process, and at the end, it's that company told the employee, for example, that they are able to pay. They told the attorneys that they're able to pay, and then it comes time to demonstrate an ability to pay, and they don't have the ability to pay. And then a lot of time, money, and effort was actually wasted for no reason. So it's just, regarding that, it's the size of the company doesn't really matter. Versus that, I put in there as a kind of an asterisk that there's actually a need, that this is something that is actually necessary within this business.
Right.
I think that that's just a good tip, and that the company really truly does have this desire to hire you, and you actually have a good faith desire to actually work with this company. I think that's an important thing. Okay. Do I have any other questions? Questions? I think that's it. Thank you so much. If you have any further questions, please go ahead and let us know down below. If you'd like to see any other topics, let us know. You can reach out to us on social media, here on YouTube. You can reach out to us, obviously, via our website, belcherandbrito.com. Thank you very much.